quick recap where we were holding. We're still on the first page of the Gemara, and we started with the Mishnah saying that an egg that was born on Yom Tov, Bet Shammai, they allow us to eat it, and Bet Hillel doesn't allow us to eat it, which we see here that Bet Hillel is more strict and Bet Shammai is more lenient, which is the opposite of their nature. Since there was a disagreement in a law, in a halakha of Yom Tov, the Mishnah brings another two disagreements, just to strengthen the disagreement. One of them is in the measurement of seor and chametz, in order to be chayav, and the other one is about slaughtering an animal on Yom Tov, because we know on Yom Tov you're allowed to do whatever you need to in order to prepare food for yourself. This is called ochel nefesh. The third disagreement was, what if I slaughter an animal on Yom Tov, an animal or a chicken, and once I slaughter the animal I have to cover the blood with the sand. Bet Shammai says you can slaughter it even if I don't have the sand prepared. And Bet Hillel says no, if you didn't prepare the sand before Shabbat, or if I didn't stick the shovel in the ground before Shabbat, I cannot slaughter the animal. Bet Hillel is talking about, of course, milchatchila. I mean, he allows us to do it b'diavad, after the fact. We're not going to stop now about this disagreement. Later on in the Gemara, we're going to answer all these questions. But right away, the Gemara comes and says, what are you dealing here? Obviously, you have a disagreement, referring to Bet Shammai and Bet Hillel. Bet Shammai agrees to eat the egg, Bet Hillel doesn't agree. Comes the Gemara and says, what are you talking about? What's the argument here right now? Bet Shammai says, I'm holding by the fact that it's a chicken that is designated to be eaten. Since this chicken is designated to be eaten, then I'm allowing to eat the egg, since the chicken is allowed to be eaten. Bet Hillel says, no, that's not my argument. I'm talking about a chicken that is not allowed, that is designated just to lay eggs. So since the chicken is the only designated to lay eggs, then I can't slaughter it. So the chicken becomes muktzeh. Therefore, I say that the egg becomes muktzeh with the chicken. Which of course brings an argument. So what if the chicken is muktzeh? What is it making the egg a muktzeh? Who cares? That was the question Shlomo had. Who cares if the chicken is muktzeh? Why does it make the egg muktzeh? Comes Rabbi Nachman, Rav Nachman, and says, well, stop the argument, because we are talking only about a chicken. What do we talk about? A chicken that is designated to lay eggs. Comes Rav Nachman and says, L'olam b'tarnegolet ha'omed legadel beitzim. Rav Nachman says, stop the argument. The argument right now is irrelevant, because we are talking about a chicken that is supposed to lay eggs. Now we have a different question here. Now we also mentioned that there are two opinions that we are assuming that Bet Shammai and Bet Hillel are holding by. There is an argument in a different Gemara, in Tractate Shabbat, about the concept of muktzeh. And we have two Tanaim that disagree. Rab Shimon says, I don't agree even with the concept of muktzeh. For some severe things I will agree, but I don't hold by muktzeh. This is the opinion of Rab Shimon. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, I hold by the fact that there is muktzeh. Here we have an opinion that says maybe Bet Shammai is allowing to eat the egg, not because it's a chicken that is designated to lay eggs or a chicken that is designated to be eaten. Maybe they're allowing us to eat the egg because they're not holding that there is such a thing as muktzeh. Therefore, it doesn't matter what type of a chicken it is. The other opinion says maybe it's Bet Hillel that is holding by Rabbi Yehuda that there is muktzeh. And if there is muktzeh, then we have an argument to find out if the chicken is muktzeh or not. And now we can find out if the egg is muktzeh or not. So Rav Nachman says, right, first of all, let's negate one option. Let's throw one option out of the window is that the fact that we're talking about a chicken is designated to lay eggs. So there's no argument right now if it's a chicken to designated to lay eggs or chicken to be eaten. That's disqualify one opinion. So now, that's where we left off. Here, for example, if you remember, we left off by saying, Kasalta daitin, I was about to say, Afilu man the shari b'muktzeh, even the ones that allow muktzeh, benolad asar, I'm not prohibiting the egg right now because of muktzeh. I'm prohibiting it benolad asar. Benolad means it was born on Yom Tov, which means that I didn't even have my mind on the fact that there's going to be an egg. If it's a chicken that is designated, like Rav Nachman says, to give eggs, my mind wasn't on the fact that necessarily right now there's going to be an egg right now. So the other opinion says in the Gemara, I'm not even talking about right now about muktzeh. I'm talking about that I'm prohibiting in an egg that was born. I'm prohibiting it because it's nolad. Nolad means that it was just born, not because of muktzeh. So some would say, and again, we're now just laying down foundation. It doesn't matter who's right now and who's wrong. We're just now giving all sorts of options. Some might say, that's why the Gemara says, Kasalta daitin, where we were about to say that I'm not prohibiting the egg because of muktzeh. I'm prohibiting right now the egg because it was born. This is called nolad. And if my opinion was not on the fact that there's going to be an egg and I'm going to eat it, this is kind of answering your first question. So what if the chicken is muktzeh? And why would it make the egg muktzeh? You're right. There's no connection. I'm prohibiting right now. Ani oser et zeh. I'm not allowing you to eat, not because it's muktzeh or because the chicken is muktzeh. I'm not allowing you to eat it because it was born. And my mind was not on the egg to eat it before it was even existed. This is a whole different thing here. So right now, the opinion that is backing up Beit Hillel is saying it's not because it's muktzeh that we're not eating it, because it was born. This is called nolad. It didn't exist before I had the option of even giving it to making it even a muktzeh. The machine. If I have a chicken that is designated to lay eggs, who says she's going to give me an egg every day?
What if you have 10 of them?
We're talking about one right now.
So the farmer only has one chicken?
Let's say right now it's a very poor farmer, he only has one chicken. Doesn't matter if you have 10,000 of them. Now we're concentrating on one chicken. Your opinion, your question is we can't hold by it because the fact is that the chicken don't lay eggs every day. So I don't know. Maybe it does have a chicken. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. Now we continue. We're just going a little bit back from where we left off. Amar Rab Nachman. Rab Nachman says, "Leolam betarnegolet haomedet legadel beitzim." We're always talking about a chicken that is designated to lay eggs. Udeit le muktzeh, it le nolad. Whoever has the svara that there is muktzeh.
What's svara?
Svara is holding by the opinion. The Talmud says, Udeit le muktzeh, the one who's holding by muktzeh, it le nolad, is holding by the concept of nolad. Basically, if I'm holding by Rabbi Yehuda, if we're going back to the Gemara of Shabbat, if I'm holding by Rabbi Yehuda that there is the concept of muktzeh, I'm also going to agree with the fact that there's the concept of nolad, something that was born today. And the Gemara, this is the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. The Gemara continues, Udelet le muktzeh, let le nolad. Whoever doesn't hold by muktzeh, doesn't hold by the opinion of nolad. Right? And of course, this is referring to Beit Shammai, Kedat Rabbi Shimon. Beit Shammai is holding by Rabbi Shimon. And Beit Hillel, Kedat Rabbi Huda. So now we're kind of making seder right now. That Rabbi Nachman says, first of all, we're talking about a chicken that is designated to lay eggs. One argument is out of the window. Next argument, we have two Tanaim that hold by two opinions. One of them is Rabbi Shimon that doesn't hold by muktzeh. Right? And of course, just off the subject, it's not that he's completely against muktzeh, just in the severe things he holds by muktzeh. In the regular stuff that are not so severe, Rabbi Shimon doesn't hold that there's such a thing as muktzeh. So, the one who holds by muktzeh is Rabbi Huda. The Gemara tells me the ones that are holding by Rabbi Huda, so they're holding by Muktzeh. They're also holding by the opinion that there is nolad. Therefore, they're prohibiting me. They're not allowing me to eat the egg, not because the chicken is Muktzeh or the egg is Muktzeh, rather because it was born on Yom Tov. The ones that are holding by Reb Shimon, who is right now Bet Shammai, they're just don't holding that there is Muktzeh. Right? Next. Now comes a question on Rav Nachman. Umi Amar Rav Nachman Hachi. Who actually says that Rav Nachman, that's what he said? If you remember last week, we talked about that right now, imagine we're sitting here in a yeshiva. I'm holding, although I don't have the piece of paper like last time, let me get the piece of paper. So the example would be real. We have to now go down to the depth of the discussion. I'm sitting here in my yeshiva and I'm telling you guys, you got to help me out. I found this note, and on this note there's a Mishnah. And the Mishnah says that if the egg was born on Yom Tov, it can be eaten by Reb Hillel, and if Reb Shammai says that it can be eaten. The Mishnah is not complete. I'm missing a piece here. I don't know what they're holding by. Guys, help me. You say, I think that Bet Shammai is holding by Reb Shimon and he doesn't hold by Muktzeh. You say, no. I think that we're going by Bet Hillel that is holding by Rabbi Yehuda. Another person says, I don't even know what you're talking about. The argument is completely different. Suddenly comes in Rav Nachman and says, stop your argument. I was just visiting another yeshiva and I heard that the argument is not about if it's right now about the egg. The argument is that the chicken is designated to be laying eggs. So Rav Nachman comes and straightens out right now my argument. Comes the Gemara and says, who says that that's what Rav Nachman meant? Where are you bringing that from? Going back to the example I gave you before, we are spread on 300 years right now.
That's what he meant, or that he said anything? Like who
said
that he said?
The Gemara comes and tells me, Umi Amar Rab Nachman Hachi. Who said that that's what he meant? Who said that that's what he actually said? Who says that Rab Nachman means that Reb Hillel, that Bet Hillel is holding by Reb Yehuda?
Didn't the Gemara say that?
No, the Gemara is an argument right now. Now the Gemara is now throwing another punch and saying, whoa, take a stop for a second. Why do you believe Rab Nachman? Who said that? Vehatnan, didn't we learn in a Mishnah that can be found in Masechet Shabbat, Bet Shammai Omrim? Now, are you following me? You're looking in the Gemara, you're following what I'm saying? If not, then not. If yes, then we're continuing. The Gemara says, let's go back again. The Gemara says, Umi Amar Rab Nachman Hachi. Who said? Is it really so that what Nachman says, this is really the truth? That Bet Hillel is holding by Rabbi Yehuda? And now, the Gemara comes and says, wait a minute, let me pull out a Mishnah that will contradict right now what Rab Nachman says. Vehatnan, didn't we learn in the Mishnah? And what did we learn in the Mishnah? The Mishnah is in Masechet Shabbat. Bet Shammai Omrim. The house of Shammai says, Magbi'i me'al shulchan atzamot v'klipin. In the Mishnah that can be found in Masechet Shabbat, Rab Shammai says, if you have a table on Shabbat, and on the table are bones and peels. Atzamot is bones, and klipin is the peels of, can be the oranges, can be the grapefruit. The Mishnah says that Bet Shammai says that you're allowed to pick up, the bones and the peels, which are muktzeh, and to remove them. Which means that Bet Shammai is saying, in other words, you're allowed to move the muktzeh. Bet Hillel omrim, this is quoting a Mishnah. And Bet Hillel says, you're not allowed to move that muktzeh. Mesalek et atavla kula. You have to move the entire table. You can't just pick up the muktzeh from the table. The way they used to have it in the olden days, in our day, we have a tablecloth. In the olden days, they didn't have a tablecloth. They would put some type of a board over the table, and then they would just remove the whole board. So So here we're quoting a Mishnah. The Talmud comes and says, now, wait a minute. How do you know that that's what Rab Nachman meant? And the question is, he pulls out a Mishnah. Amen. Again, go again to the vision that I told you before. We're sitting here a bunch of men. And now individual A came and said, Rab Nachman says that we're talking about a chicken that is designated to lay eggs. Somebody just walked in and says, who told you that? How do you know that that's what Rab Nachman meant? So he's saying, why you have an argument? He says, because I read the Mishnah. Here's a Mishnah. In Masechet Shabbat, it says different. It says that Bet Shammai Omrim Magbiim Me'al HaShulchan Hasamot Klipim. You can remove the muktzeh. Bet Hillel says Mesalek et hatavla kula. You have to remove the entire table. Uminara, and shake it.
It doesn't contradict with what Rahman
Wait, let's till the end. Uminara, and you have to shake it. Let me finish for a second, then we'll go to your question. Ve'amar Rab Nachman, and Rab Nachman says on this Mishnah, Anu en lanu ela Bet Shammai. Which means that Rab Nachman says, according to that Mishnah, I am only going by the opinion of Bet Shammai, meaning that Bet Shammai is holding by muktzeh. You understand the contradiction right now?
No, how does that mean that Bet Shammai holds on?
Because Bet Shammai said in the Mishnah that when you have muktzeh on the table, you're allowed to move it, meaning that he's holding by the fact there's muktzeh.
But he's allowing you to move it, so he doesn't hold on.
Yeah, that doesn't matter. But he's acknowledging that the fact that it is muktzeh.
Was real, not.
Yeah, wait, let's continue. It will be all more clear. Ve'amar Rab Nachman says on this Mishnah, Anu en lanu ela Bet Shammai. We only go by Bet Shammai. Kedat Rabbi Yehuda. That Rabbi Yehuda, now it's basically saying that Rab Shammai is holding by Rabbi Yehuda that there is such a thing as muktzeh, that they're machmir, and they're prohibiting to move the bones and the peels from the table with their hands. And Bet Hillel, their opinion is like Rabbi Shimon, that they're mekel bedinei muktzeh, they're lenient in the rules of the muktzeh, and they're allowing to move the muktzeh with their hands. I know it's not clear right now, you gotta wait. Which is contradicting what Rabbi Nachman is saying according to our Mishnah, that is explaining that Rabbi Hillel is like the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, this is something that is not clear. Let's hear a question, then we'll clear it out. And again, I know right now what I said doesn't make sense, but let's continue and we'll see. Now the Gemara is saying, okay, I understand that you don't understand what's going on here with Rab Nachman, because we have one opinion that says that Rab Nachman comes and says, wait, we're talking about a chicken that is designated to lay eggs. Comes another opinion and says, what are you talking about? Who told you that's what Rab Nachman means? Here I see a Mishnah explained that Rav Nachman says that it's completely the opposite, and he quotes the Mishnah. Of course, doesn't make sense. Comes the Gemara and says, wait. Let me make order here. Amar lach Rav Nachman. Amar lach Rav Nachman means that Rav Nachman was about to say, Gabei Shabbat, the Stam Lantana. There is a Mishnah that it's called Stam Mishnah, or Mishnah Stam, or you can find it in a different way of saying it. What is this Mishnah Stam? Is that when Rabbi Yehuda collected all the Mishnayot, you have to understand that there were Tanaim who wrote the Mishnayot. That were teaching the Mishnayot. And Rabbi Yehuda came and make an order. He says, now, why did Rabbi Yehuda Anasi, and that's not talking about Rabbi Yehuda from the argument in the Masechet Shabbat, talking about Rabbi. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi took and he compiled all the Mishnayot. Why did he do it? Really, why did he do it? Because there's too much arguments. One person says, no, the Mishnah meant A. Another person says, no, the Mishnah meant B. It started to become a lot of machlokot. And one person was holding by, if you remember when we made the introduction to the class, we said that there were different periods. One of the periods was called Tkufat HaZugot, the periods of the pairs. If you remember, Shmai and Avtalion, and both Yosis, and then Bet Shammai and Bet Hillel. There was constantly, these zugot, they weren't pairs holding hands. They were arguing with each other. These zugot, these pairs, would constantly contradict each other. That at some point, Rabbi said, wait a minute, there's too much arguments. There's no order here. Therefore, I have to write the Mishnah to make sure that there's no machloket, that there's no argument. Now, when Rabbi Yehuda wanted to make sure you understand where it comes from, he would mention who stated this halacha, who stated the Mishnah. When Rabbi Yehuda didn't want to, and he says he wanted to make it obvious that everybody agrees, then he didn't mention a name. If you find a name in the Mishnah, then it means that that's who we go by. And that's the authority that brought it down, and there's going to be a machloket on that. Therefore, I'm mentioning who said that. If there is no mentioning of a name in a Mishnah, this is called Stam Mishnah. Stam doesn't mean that it's not important. Rather, everybody agrees. So when you find the concept Stam Mishnah, the rule is that the halacha is like that Mishnah, and it means that Hashem Rebbe didn't want to add a name here because he says everybody agrees on that because that is the Mishnah, that is the halacha. So when we find this concept, and we're going to run into it many times in the Gemara, when it says the Stam Lantana, meaning that we learn from a Mishnah Stam, what does it mean? That the rule is like that Mishnah. The halacha is like that Mishnah. So the Gemara comes and says, Amar lach Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman would say, Gabei Shabbat, when it comes to the din, to the ruling of Muktzeh on Shabbat, the Stam Lantana. Then we can pull it out from the Mishnah that this is a Mishnah Stam ki Rabbi Shimon. That who's the Stam Mishnah here? Rabbi Shimon, meaning that maybe Rabbi Shimon is right here. Ditnan, we'll go again. Amar lach Rab Nachman. Rab Nachman told you, Gabei Shabbat, when it comes to the rule of Shabbat, the Stam Lantana. This is a Mishnah that we go by the halacha. What is that Mishnah? Kereb Shimon. Ditnan, as we learned, wait till the end and you'll everything will be more clear. Ditnan, when you find the word Ditnan in the Gemara, it means we learned in a Mishnah. Now he brings another Mishnah from Masechet Shabbat, Kuf Nun Vav. Mechatchin et hadluin lifnei habehema. On Shabbat, you're allowed to cut the dluin is like a big pumpkin. And why did you cut the pumpkin? To feed the animals. He brings a Mishnah from Masechet Shabbat that you're allowed to cut the pumpkin lifnei habehema, to give it to the animal to eat. Ve'et hanevela, and you're also allowed to cut, and I know it doesn't sound so appetizing, but you're allowed to cut the corpse of an animal that died on Shabbat. It's called a nevela, lifnei haklavim, to give it to the dogs in order to eat them. And the Mishnah is not prohibiting me mishum muktzeh. It doesn't say that it's muktzeh. So it doesn't make the pumpkin muktzeh, and it allows me to cut it and to give it to the animal. And it doesn't make the nevela, the dead animal, muktzeh, in order for me to give it to the animal. Even though that at the time of Ben Hashmashot, in the twilight zone, when the sun was going down, in the beginning of Shabbat, that animal was alive. And that pumpkin was whole. That animal that is called nevela means that an animal died. It's at the animal's body, the corpse. Ben Hashmashot, when Shabbat started, that animal was alive. It wasn't a dead animal, meaning that this animal was not prepared to give it to the dogs. So technically, if you're going by the Stam Mishnah, which is like Reb Shimon, then therefore it should be muktzeh, right? But here the Mishnah is allowing me to eat it, and basically I'm holding here by Reb Shimon. That means that when we quoting the Mishnah, the previous Mishnah, about removing the muktzeh from the table, I'm holding here by Reb Shimon. Mokim la lebet Hillel ke Reb Shimon. Mokim means I am holding by means in Hebrew it says ma'amid. I'm now holding by Bet Hillel Kereb Shimon. Now I completely confused the situation. Now the Mishnah is telling me, that it's actually Bet Hillel that is holding Reb Shimon. What is Reb Shimon allowing? Reb Shimon is holding by there's no muktzeh, right? Now I'm completely confusing you. Because in the beginning I was holding that Bet Shammai is holding by Reb Shimon, allowing muktzeh, and Bet Hillel is like Rabbi Yehuda, not allowing. And that's where Rab Nachman says, stop the argument. We're talking about an egg that's coming from a chicken that is designated to lay eggs, which is a question as it is. Comes the Gemara and says, whoa, put everything on hold for 1 second. Everything that we learned that didn't make sense to you, put it on hold. I'm now pulling out 2 Mishnahs that are contradicting what Rab Nachman says. The first Mishnah is that I'm allowed to, Bet Shammai allows to move the muktzeh from the table. And that Bet Hillel says, no, you have to move the entire base. Now he's bringing another Mishnah to fight the argument, and says in this Mishnah, the Mishnah is allowing me to cut the pumpkin and to give to the animal, and allowing me to cut the corpse of an animal to give it to the dog. This is basically muktzeh. So now I'm holding by a completely different opinion. Suddenly I changed the tables. Now it's Bet Hillel that is going by Reb Shimon, that is allowing muktzeh, and Bet Shammai that is not holding by Rabbi Yehuda, not allowing muktzeh. Oh, now you completely changed the whole opinion. Now you completely confused me. Next page, Aval Gabei Yom Tov. Oh, the Stam Lantana. Wait a minute. Now I'm starting to see it more bright. Up until now we're talking about Shabbat. But now we're talking Gabei Yom Tov. Oh, wait a minute. Why are we arguing? The Stam Lantana, the Tana that we're talking about, Ki Rabbi Yehuda. Now things are starting to be a little bit more clear. Why are you arguing? All the facts you're bringing me about Shabbat. We just mentioned that Shabbat and Yom Tov are a little bit different. Maybe this whole argument is not about Shabbat even. Why are you now throwing all this information with agreeing to Muktzeh, not agreeing to Muktzeh? The argument was Shabbat. Wait a minute. This is Masechet Yom Tov. Why are you arguing? Aval Gabei Yom Tov. Now we're talking about Yom Tov. Now we continue. The Stan Lantama. This Mishnah that is called Mishnah Stam. That we're holding by, that everybody agrees with. Ki Rabbi Yehuda. What is Rabbi Yehuda holding by? He's agreeing with the laws of Muktzeh. Now again, let's go to another Mishnah. Ditnan. Ditnan, when you see in the Gemara the word Ditnan, means we learned it in a Mishnah. This is another Mishnah, Masechet Shabbat. En mevak inetzim. I'm not allowed to break wood. Min hakorot. Korot, those pieces of wood we had outside for the sukkah? This is korot. Korah means like a long piece of wood. Excuse me? A beam. This is korot. The Mishnah says, En mevakim etzim. I'm not allowed to chop it into small pieces of wood in order to burn them. Mina korot, from these long pieces of boards that are designated to build a building or whatever. Mipnei she'em muktzeh. Right? V'lo mina korah shenishbara b'yom tov. And even, let's say, a piece got broken on Yom Tov. I don't know how, doesn't matter right now how, but one of these beams broken on Yom Tov.
Now it's not designated for building.
Of course, I can't build with it anymore because it's broken. Now, on Yom Tov, I'm allowed to burn it. If I'm going to cook something, I'm allowed to use it. Bless you. Now he's quoting here a Mishnah that it's saying, I'm not allowed to break the board, the beam, in order to burn fire from it, that it was designated to a building. Velo min hakorah shenishbara b'yom tov. But I have here a beam that was broken on Yom Tov. Now I have here a din. Din is the ruling. I have here a disagreement between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon. That Rabbi Yehuda says, if something was muktzeh before Shabbat, and after from that, it stopped being muktzeh because something changed, then it says muktzeh the whole day. And Rabbi Shimon does agree with that. He agrees with the fact. You understand the argument between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon? Rabbi Yehuda says, if something was muktzeh ben hashmashot, which means when the sun was going down, Friday night, something was muktzeh. And after that, it stopped becoming muktzeh anymore. Like the board on Yom Tov that broke in the middle. It stopped becoming muktzeh. Then it stays muktzeh the rest of the day. I don't care if it stopped becoming muktzeh. It was muktzeh before Shabbat. It's muktzeh on Shabbat. I don't care what happened to it. But Rabbi Shimon says, no. If the fact that it changed its status on Shabbat, it's not muktzeh anymore. You understand the argument between both of them? Good. Mokin la lebet Hillel. Mokin, remember I told you, is we hold by. So we mokin la lebet Hillel k'Rabbi Yehuda. Now Rabbi Nachman comes and says, in our Mishnah, we're holding by Rabbi Yehuda. In this Mishnah that we're talking about, that is strict in the laws of muktzeh. Here we're holding by, that's the explanation we gave in the beginning. Doesn't mean that that's what it is. This is the importance here. Don't every word that we say believe in it. We're throwing opinions right now. Now we're continuing. Therefore, Reb Nachman, mokin la lebet Hillel. He's holding a Bet Hillel. Bet Hillel here in our Mishnah. Our Mishnah, what is it dealing with? Yom Tov, not Shabbat. Don't confuse now. The Gemara comes and says, why are you confusing now the rules? Here he's talking about Shabbat. Here he's talking about Yom Tov. Don't confuse me right now. Therefore, Rab Nachman says, wait. Don't disagree with what I'm saying. I'm quoting our Mishnah that it's talking about Yom Tov, and I'm holding by Rabbi Yehuda. I'm holding by Bet Hillel, who holds by Bet Hillel, that he's strict with muktzeh. Why? Because the rule, the halacha, is that Rabbi Yehuda is strict with the dinim, the rules of muktzeh, and since the Mishnah is a Mishnah stam, then this is the halacha, and the halacha goes by Rabbi Yehuda, meaning that the halacha is like Bet Hillel. That's why Rabbi Nachman explains that when it comes to our Mishnah, when it's talking about Yom Tov, don't confuse. Then I'm holding by that it's a chicken that is designated to lay eggs, and that's for Bet Hillel is prohibiting the egg. So Reb Nachman is now defending himself. Because Reb Nachman came with one argument saying, well, the argument Bechlal is on the egg, chicken that is supposed to be laying eggs. Comes an opinion and says, where are you bringing that from? So now Reb Nachman is defending himself. Now the Gemara is asking a question. If Bemet, the Mishnah, is holding by one opinion in Yom Tov and a different opinion on Shabbat, the Gemara is now asking a question. Mikdi means because man the stamel matninin, who is the one who made this Mishnah a stam Mishnah? Because one of the means at least you have one of the Tanaim that is arguing, but is not mentioning his name. What is it basically saying? Rabbi, excuse me? Not mentioning the name, because we talked about that Rabbi is the Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, that when he wanted to rule a halacha according to one Tana, then he would mention his name. But if everybody agrees to that, he's not mentioning the name of the Tanaim, and that is the halacha. So go back to what we started. Because man the stamel matninim, who's the one who, because he's the one who's making the Mishnah not supported by a name. Ma ishna b'Shabbat the stamlan kereb Shimon. ומה ישנה ביום טוב דסעתם לן כרבי יהודה. Why, when it comes to Shabbat, we mention the Mishnah like Rabbi, which is the opinion of Reb Shimon that is lenient with Muktzeh, but when it comes to Yom Tov, the Stam Mishnah, and he made it as a halacha, he made it like Rabbi Yehuda, that is lenient, is strict with Muktzeh. Comes now a question on the Gemara. If you're telling me, again to explain the last paragraph, if you're telling me that the Mishnah, the Stam Mishnah, that's the halacha we go by, which means that everybody agrees with it, why are you telling me that when it comes to Shabbat, Ma Yishna b'Shabbat, when you're talking about Shabbat, the Stam Mishnah, the Mishnah that everybody agrees by, which that's the halacha, goes like Rabbi Shimon, and the Mishnah the Yom Tov, Uma Yishna b'Yom Yom Tov, the Sanatam Lan Rabbi Yehuda. How come it's different in the Yom Tov and Shabbat? This is the Gemara is presenting a question. The Gemara is now answering. Amrei, they said, Shabbat de Chamira. When it comes to the dinim, the rules of Shabbat, then it's much more strict because we don't have the rules of Ochel Nefesh, of preparing food, like Yom Tov. Velo ate lezilzulei ba. That one should not come and be lenient when it comes to the rules of Shabbat. Stamlan, then this Mishnah is Rebbe did it as a Mishnah Stam, and he made it as a rule, as Kava Halacha, and made it as a Halacha. Ke Reb Shimon de Mekel, then he made it like Reb Shimon that is Mekel. Aval bat Yom Tov dekil ve'atel lezilzul lebei. That Chas v'Shalom, when it comes to Yom Tov, when the rules are a little bit lenient, a person can come and be very lenient and say, oh, everything is lenient, let's be lenient with everything. Satamlan ke Rabbi Yehuda de Machmir. He made the Mishnah as the halacha like Rabbi Yehuda that is Machmir. Basically explaining it in other words, the Gemara comes and presents a question. How come when you're talking about Shabbat, when I'm supposed to be Machmir, you Mekel? And how come when you're talking about Yom Tov, when I'm supposed to be Mekel, you Machmir? You're contradicting yourself. You understand the question the Gemara is asking?
So, Machmir and Mekel, it's lenient and strict?
Strict is Machmir, and lenient is Mekel. The Gemara is asking a question. You are now telling me that there's a Mishnah, and we're calling it a Stam Mishnah, a Mishnah Stam, meaning that everybody agrees with it. Means that's the halacha. You telling me that on Shabbat, when I'm supposed to be strict, you Mekel, you're becoming more lenient. And when on Yom Tov, when I'm more lenient, you're becoming strict. I don't understand what you're saying here. You totally confuse me. The Gemara answers, okay, when Shabbat is very strict, when the dinim of Shabbat are very strict, I don't want somebody that will chas v'shalom lezalzel. It says, ve'ate lezilzulei be. That a person that will become very lenient in the rules of Muktzeh, therefore I'm making it much more strict. It's talking about Yom Tov right now. Since on Yom Tov I'm very lenient with the rules of Muktzeh, because it's Yom Tov, I'm allowed to cook for food and I'm allowed to do many things. Since the rule is to be very lenient, I don't want somebody to come and say, oh, we're lenient with this, let's be lenient with everything on Yom Tov. Therefore I'm very strict on Yom Tov. And when it comes on Shabbat, when I'm when I'm not lenient with anything, and a person can chas v'shalom velo ate lezilzulei, a person will not come to mekel in the din of Muktzeh, then I don't have to be so lenient. I don't have to be so strict. You understand the so to say contradiction in the beginning and the vice versa? Because the Gemara comes and tells me, I don't understand what you're saying. On Shabbat, when I'm supposed to be strict, you're becoming lenient, with Muktzeh. And when on Yom Tov, when I'm supposed to be lenient, you're becoming strict. So the Gemara says, of course I'm using the other way around. because my mindset on Shabbat, I'm very strict with muktzeh. So the Gemara says, okay, so I can be more lenient because nobody will come to, if I'm already strict with everything, of course I'll be strict with everything. On Yom Tov, my mindset is, wait a minute, I don't have to be so strict because obviously I have all these leniencies in muktzeh. Maybe I can be lenient with everything. Therefore the Gemara says, here I have to be strict. So you understand that the fact that I gave you a little bit of leeway with food doesn't mean you have to be lenient with everything. Therefore, I'm becoming now strict with everything on Yom Tov. That's why it was kind of switched around. Again, to make sense with what we're saying, the Gemara is posing a question right now about the explanation, the defense that Rab Nachman is coming and presenting. Rab Nachman came for his own defense by pulling out Mishnayot and saying, whoa, I'm quoting here Mishnayot, don't attack me. Now the Gemara is again questioning Rab Nachman. Well, okay. B'mai ukimta, with what you are holding by, of course it's asking Rab Nachman. And again, you have to understand, when the Gemara is asking a question, it's not talking to Rab Nachman face to face. That's 300 years later. Rab Nachman comes and poses holding by a certain rule. That's where it says ukimta. Ukimta is I'm holding. I mean, in Hebrew, in English, doesn't make sense. In Hebrew, is leha'amid. I'm making something stand. When I'm making something stand, it means that's where I'm holding by. The Gemara is now telling, b'mai ukimta, but with what are you holding this Mishnah right now? B'tarnegolet ha'omedet legadel bitzim mishum muktzeh. You're now holding your rule with a chicken that is designated to lay eggs, and you holding that is muktzeh. Is asking a question. Adi miflege beitzah? But the beitzah is not separated from the chicken. This is exactly the question that Shlomo had in the beginning. So what if the chicken is muktzeh? Now, why would it make the egg muktzeh because the chicken is muktzeh? Where are you bringing that from? In a place that Bet Shammai and Bet Hillel are arguing in the din of muktzeh, lefligu betarnegolet. They're right now. The argument seems here that the argument is about the chicken, not about the egg. Because the argument here is about a chicken, whether it's a chicken that is designated to lay eggs, or a chicken that is designated to be eaten. Then you have the din of muktzeh on one of the chickens. If it's designated to be eaten, then there's no din of muktzeh here, because it was designated to be eaten. It was designated to be eaten before Shabbat. If it's a chicken that is designated to lay an egg, since I don't know if it has an egg or not, then the din of muktzeh can be holding by on this chicken because I don't know if it has an egg or not. So if this is the case, then Bet Hillel is not permitting to eat the egg because they're holding by Rabbi Yehuda, who's holding like the Chachamim, that is the muktzeh. Therefore the egg will be muktzeh because I didn't have my mind on it before Shabbat. And therefore the chicken is also prohibited. But Bet Shammai that are agreeing with the Chachamim that are going by Reb Shimon, that are agreeing with muktzeh, then the chicken is not prohibited. The chicken is not muktzeh. So if this is the case, why are you bringing the argument in regards to the egg and not in regards to the chicken? Again, the Gemara now is throwing another question here. I understand, Rav Nachman, what you're saying. I'm very happy with what you're saying. I'm very happy you know the Mishnah good and you brought me some Mishnayot here. But aren't we arguing right now about the chicken? Aren't we arguing if the chicken is muktzeh or not? Why are you bringing now the egg? Of course, if the chicken is muktzeh, it doesn't affect the egg. It shouldn't affect the egg. But we're holding here about an argument if the chicken is muktzeh or if the chicken is not muktzeh. Right? The Gemara answers, Lo diacha kochan de Bet Shammai, to let you know that the reason why Bet Shammai is holding by like Reb Shimon is to teach you that Bet Shammai is willing to be lenient. They've knowledge sharei, and it's talking about an egg that was born. It's basically we're coming to show you now that Bet Shammai, in order to allow something, it's very easy to be strict. But in order to permit something, you need to have power. You know, most people on Shabbat, they don't do 80% of the things because they don't know the rule. If you know the rule, if you actually know the rule, you know what to do. You know, there are ways how to put something on the blech, or from the hot plate, how to take it off. If you don't know the rules, I say, I don't know the rules, I don't want to do it. It doesn't mean it's not permitted. You just need to know how to do it. So here, the Gemara comes and says, why is Bet Shammai allowing to eat the egg? To show you that Bet Shammai is actually really knowledgeable in the halacha, and they know how and why and when to permit you to eat the egg. Leodiacha kochan de Bet Shammai. They're showing you the strength of Bet Shammai. They've not had the sharei, because it's even an egg that was born on Yom Tov. Bet Shammai allows you to eat it. And if they would argue in regards to the rules of muktzeh, they would know that Bet Shammai will allow it to eat it. But since there's a place to disagree about the muktzeh, because when a person takes away off his attention from something that is muktzeh, then like something that was born, I didn't have my opinion on my mind on the egg. Then even if the egg, how can I make the egg muktzeh if I didn't have my mind on it before Shabbat? It didn't even exist. So right now we see here that Bet Shammai is allowing the muktzeh, and also Bet Shammai is allowing to eat the egg because even if it was born. That's why Bet Shammai is giving us their opinion that even if the egg was born, they're still permitted. I don't know if we're going to continue here. Let's just finish one more paragraph and then we'll explain it all tomorrow. And the argument is in the chicken, not in the egg. The argument right now that we're presenting about the egg, about the egg, not about the chicken, about the chicken, is to show you that Bet Hillel knows how to be strict. That even in a muktzeh, for example, that was not born, the chicken, the egg was not born, he's not allowing it. And you will say that the power of allowing is better. And both of them, they find an argument. Let's stop over here because here already the Gemara is continuing to explain. But to kind of sum it up, because we're still left with so many different questions here. Nothing was answered right now. So we started with an argument about the egg, if it can be eaten or not. Then we were holding by one opinion, by Beit Shammai, that Beit Shammai is holding by Reb Shimon, and Reb Shimon is not holding by muktzeh, that's why it's permitting it. Comes Beit Hillel and says, no, we're holding by Beit Yehuda, that is muktzeh, and we're not permitting it. This was one opinion. Comes now a third opinion and says, wait a minute, why are you arguing? We're not even arguing right now about the egg. We're arguing about the chicken. And since we're arguing about the chicken, if the chicken is muktzeh or not, then Rab Nachman says, no, we're holding by that this is a chicken that is designated to lay eggs. Therefore, if the chicken is designated to lay eggs, then I don't know if it has an egg, then it makes the egg muktzeh. Then we're now pulling a different rule here, that we're not even talking about the muktzeh, we're talking about the fact that it was born, about nolad. Comes Rab Nachman and says, we're holding by one opinion. Comes the Gemara and says, where are you bringing that from? Where are you bringing all your opinion? So Rab Nachman comes to his defense and says, here, I have two Mishnahs that they say they're supporting what I'm saying. Right? The table and the animal. Serving the pieces. First one was the table, removing the peels and the bones. Then Bet Shammai says you can remove the peels and the bones from the table. And Bet Hillel says, no, you have to remove the whole tablecloth off, so to say. The next Mishnah is that I'm allowed to cut the pumpkin and to give it to the animal to eat. And I'm also allowed to cut the nevela and give it. And it's the same thing. This was not muktzeh before Shabbat. Now it became muktzeh, so to say. Sorry, it was not muktzeh before Shabbat, but I'm not using it as muktzeh during Shabbat. I'm allowed to cut it. Come again, the Gemara and propose a question, and the Gemara says, no. My answer is, when you're asking me the argument, of course here it's pulling already a Mishnah that's saying this is a Mishnah Stam, meaning that everybody agrees, means that's the halacha. Then the Gemara comes and tells you, no. I'm making the rules more strict on Yom Tov because by default they're lenient on Yom Tov, and I don't want people to come and to be lenient with all the rules, so I'm making the rule more strict. On Shabbat, that everybody's strict to start with, nobody will become and start disregarding rules, then I can be more lenient. Meaning that it's totally switching now the opinions between Bet Hillel and Bet Shammai. Suddenly we see that Bet Shammai is the one that is strict and Bet Hillel is the one that allows. So it's constantly the opposite from the rule. Excuse me?
The way it usually is.
The way it usually is. Which of course now the Gemara comes and says, wait a minute, let's take a break for a second because let's go back to the egg. Right? We're now arguing about the egg. Now the Gemara says, wait a minute, let's remove the egg again. We're going back to the chicken. So we have here many different arguments right now. Right now we don't have answers, by the way. I know you have a lot of questions, but we don't have answers right now. We're trying to take all these papers and make seder and to put it into one halacha. Therefore, you don't have answers right now. Nothing is clear with what we're saying. Why are you saying this and you saying that? And in the beginning, Bet Hillel is strict and Bet Shammai is lenient. And now Bet Shammai is strict and Bet Hillel is lenient. What's going on here? Now we still didn't make our minds if we're arguing about the egg or if we're arguing about the chicken. So we still have two big questions here. So right now, we only have one Tana that comes and throws all this information, Rav Nachman. And right now we have to lean on what Rav Nachman says. We will see down the line that comes we'll do it tomorrow, comes a Amora, Amar Rava. Whoa, suddenly Rava comes and throws an opinion. Amar Rava לעולם בתרנגולת העומדת לאכילה ביום טוב. Oh, now you סיבכת את העניינים לגמרי. Now you completely made it not clear. Now an Amora comes and says, wait a minute, I have other information. We're talking about a chicken that is designated to be eaten. A minute ago you said, Rav Nachman says it's a chicken that's designated to lay eggs. So, Bezrat Hashem, we'll continue tomorrow. I know you have some unclear matters, but it will take us, I think, another page or two. It's going to take us another page or two to start really understanding the argument right now. Right now we don't know if we're arguing about the chicken, if the chicken is muktzeh or not, if it's designated to be eaten or designated to lay eggs. And another argument, I don't know if we're talking about the egg. If the egg is muktzeh, if I have a problem with the muktzeh, or if I have a problem that the egg was born on Shabbat. Right now we're still in a mess. We're still in the dark. We don't know who's arguing what. We don't know who's holding by what opinion. Now we're completely confused. Because in the beginning our opinion was that Bet Shammai is holding by Reb Shimon. Very lenient with muktzeh. And Bet Hillel is holding by Rabbi Yehuda, being strict with muktzeh. Now it confused it. It turned it around. That it's Bet Shammai that is the strict one and the Bet Hillel is lenient. That's where the Gemara started by answering by saying it's switched because where it's placed to be lenient, and you have to have some strict rules, and when it's strict, you can have some lenient rules. That's why suddenly Bet Shammai switches and Bet Hillel switches. But that's just one of the answers why they switched opinions. It doesn't mean that's really what they're holding by. We're going to have to wait and see really by what Bet Shammai is holding by in regards to muktzeh, and really what in regards to Rabbi Yehuda and Reb Shimon, there's no argument. Rabbi Yehuda is holding strict by muktzeh, Reb Shimon is not holding strict by muktzeh. There's no argument here. Now our enigma, what our question is, who's Bet Shammai and Bet Hillel holding by? Either by Reb Shimon or by Reb Hillel. And therefore it will help us to understand why they're permitting or prohibiting eating the egg. And of course comes now the new question, maybe it's not even talking about, that's what Rava is going to come and say, it's not even holding by a chicken that's laying eggs. It's talking about a chicken that is designated to be eaten. And if the chicken is designated to be eaten, the egg cannot be muktzeh. Because if I'm had my mind to eat the chicken, it means to eat everything in the chicken is. If there's an egg or if there's not an egg. So now it totally changes the face of the argument. Mezrat Hashem, at the end of the sugya, everything should be answered. Unfortunately, the reality is that sometimes questions do remain open. We have to wait for Mashiach. Right now, we're still a little bit in the haze.